Hey guys, welcome back. It's Joy. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you hit subscribe. Hope you had an amazing weekend. I did. I got to wear a cowboy hat around Santa Barbara all day Saturday and do a little wine tasting for my friend's birthday. So that was super fun. And of course, watch all of the games, which were every different range of interesting and with some pretty serious outcomes, which we'll definitely talk about. The playoff race in the AFC has dwindled down to the last week. There is a huge game in the NFC for the number one seed. It's very exciting, because for a while over the past couple weeks, I've been like, wow, the last week of the season is really going to be boring. There's going to be nothing going on. And in true NFL fashion, they have figured it out. But one of the topics that we have been discussing really for half the season now because of the incredible play that we've gotten this year, which I think we're very lucky for, has been who is going to win the MVP. Now, I've moved around a lot on this topic. I have flip-flopped, admittedly, but I think it's a good thing. I get excited when we get top level play out of our elite players. That is a good year. We have had years where we haven't had the best play, where we haven't had the best statistical seasons, where we've seen an array of injuries to the top players, and that sucks. So I'm really grateful that we've gotten to watch really good football this year. Now, we've watched a lot of really shitty football also, but from the top players, we have gotten top level play. And I have been on the Saquon bandwagon that Saquon should be MVP. And at certain points in the season, I feel like he was. I've been heavy on the Josh Allen as the MVP. And I didn't think it was possible for Lamar to sneak back in, but he has. And by sneak back in, I really mean kick down the door, because that Christmas performance was, while the game incredibly boring, his performance spectacular. And now I'm completely torn. I am completely torn on who the MVP should be. Genuinely, I would not be upset if Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Saquon Barkley won the MVP. I wouldn't. I think it's really crazy how this has come down to the final week. And for a variety of different reasons, I think all of them deserve it. And it's going to be splitting hairs. Now, if you want to say, Saquon Barkley shouldn't be in the conversation, you're only saying that because he's not a quarterback. If he was putting up these kind of numbers, quarterback type numbers, as a running back, if he was doing something like that as a quarterback, he would absolutely be the MVP. He's done something that 9 other players in the history of the league have done. He is the 9th player ever to rush for 2,000 yards. So if he was doing something equivalent to that at the quarterback position, he would hands down be the MVP. So you're only saying that because he is not a quarterback. But Josh Allen is the heavy favorite right now, minus 300. Lamar's plus 250. Saquon's plus 1,500. Josh Allen has a chance to set the franchise record for wins in a season with 14, which they likely will. He's led the Bills to their 5th straight AFC title for the first time in franchise history. And the reason why I would say that he is the MVP is because at the beginning of the season, I said that he was prepped to be the MVP this year. He was coming into a season where everyone was doubting them. I know this is eons ago, but no one thought that the Bills were going to be good this year. In fact, people were predicting their absolute downfall. They thought the Jets were going to win the division. They thought the Dolphins were going to win the division. And the reason they thought that is because they didn't think that he had enough pieces around him to get there. And he has been the reason why they are in the position that they're in. And when we're talking about what an MVP is, it's not just statistics. It is team success. It is looking at what you are working with, what you have overcome. And I think he has the case, the strongest case for the MVP this year. Now here comes Lamar Jackson. Now, they struggled early, and I think that set him back in this conversation significantly up until recently. They don't have as good of a record team-wise as Josh Allen and the Bills do. Now, people are saying, well, they play in the AFC East. Okay, cool. So Tom Brady never should have won the MVP? Because the AFC East has always been terrible. Let's just be serious. It's every other year somebody might make a little push, but that's what the AFC East is. So I don't want to hear that. That's where you play. We know that Lamar Jackson plays in one of the toughest divisions in football, but they didn't lose to them. They lost to 2 terrible teams very early on. But he now leads the NFL in QBR. He leads all quarterbacks in rushing yards. He broke Michael Vick's record. He has 43 total touchdowns. It's the second most in the NFL. He's been spectacular. He's been absolutely brilliant. and they are a formidable team because he is out there. He's having one of the best seasons of his career, which is ironic to say because he already has 2 MVPs, including a unanimous one. And he absolutely, if he were to win it, would absolutely deserve it. He is having an MVP season, and that Christmas performance sort of reminded everyone, like, I am the cheat code, and while we may have started slow, we are having a great season, and we're one of the best teams in the league, and that is because of me. Now, he also has Derrick Henry, obviously, which I think people will dock him on because that's something that Josh Allen does not have, and Derrick Henry is one of the best players in the league. But regardless, Lamar Jackson is easily an MVP in any year in the NFL. Now we get to Saquon. As I mentioned, he's the 9th player ever to rush for over 2,000 yards. He's only 101 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's records for the most yards in a single season. I understand he will have done it in 17 games, so people will disregard that. Either way, being the 9th player ever to rush for over 2,000 yards is significant. And again, if he was doing the equivalent of that at the quarterback position, we would not even be discussing Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson because that is so rare. 9 players ever. That is so rare. He should absolutely be considered for the MVP. I think it should be splitting hairs between the 2 quarterbacks. They play the Giants, the Eagles do next week, which has the 2nd worst rush defense in the NFL. Now, they're locked in, so it might not make sense to play him. And certainly you don't want to risk anything for a record that people are going to likely argue with you about anyway because of 17 games. But either way, I'm so happy for Saquon. He's just, I rarely say this because it's not something we can consider, but he's the best guy and he deserves it. And after everything that happened with the Giants, it is such a petty queen petty just story. I love it. I love proper wholesome revenge, and that is what Saquon is getting on the Giants, rushing for 2,000 yards this year with the Eagles. It's just spectacular. So I don't know who's going to win. I don't know what's going to happen. The Ravens have an important game in week 18 against the Browns. They need to win that, so he's going to be playing for something. We'll see. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. I'm quite sure that Saquon's not going to win it, but again, I will bang on the table that he should be winning it. And it should be much closer in the odds to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So last night we got to watch 2 rookies put on an absolute show. What a great game to finish the weekend. Jayden Daniels and the Commanders beat Michael Penix and the Falcons 30-24. Jayden is obviously the rookie of the year, and my conclusion from that game is we have to start adjusting how we evaluate athletic quarterbacks. I mean, we just do. He's great. He's great. And the thing that we like most about Jayden, other than his talent, of course, but his intangible, is that he really acts like a professional. He is so mature and so poised, and it just reverberates throughout the building. And what's important about that is when you're going to a place that hasn't been winning, that has new staff, that has everything new, including you, establishing a culture is super important. And that's why I loved the Dan Quinn hire for the Commanders. And what the staff he's put together, paired with Jayden Daniels, has been brilliant. And there were concerns about Jayden coming into the league of, would his style of play translate to the NFL? And it absolutely has. He's set the rookie record for most rushing yards by a quarterback in a season. We know that was held by RG3. He's led Washington to their first 11-win season since 1991. And of course, they clinched last night. So they're making their first playoff appearance since 2020 and looking to win their first game since 2005. He's 4th in QBR behind Lamar, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, who is a whole other conversation because what the Bengals are doing is insane and insanely frustrating because if they didn't start so slow, they wouldn't have had the season that they're having. So not to be derailed by Joe Burrow, but I think that Jayden Daniels has been spectacular. He's been such a pleasure to watch. And the Commanders being able to find their quarterback of the future paired with the proper staff is what all teams are overlooking, because the proper staff is important. That's also why I believe Michael Penix is looking the way that he's looking. These 2 have also played a lot of college football. They are very, very experienced, and they're going to places with good cultures and good coaching. That matters. And it is so important to pair all of those things together in this cocktail. So often teams just, okay, we got this talent. We're just going to throw them here. We're going to figure it out. And then we're going to put this together. Like, be intentional. Be intentional. The Falcons got a lot of criticism for what they did with Michael Penix, but they were like, you know what? We're going to put these things around him. Yes, we spent $100 million on Kirk Cousins, but we're going to get the future and we're going to have him sit. And Kirk Cousins ended up being terrible down the stretch and it all worked out. So good on them for being prepared. I am always a fan of being prepared. And that's what they did. And that's what the Commanders did. They got new ownership. They made intentional hires. The staff is riddled with experience, head coaching experience. And you're seeing all the results from bringing in veteran rookie quarterbacks, meaning rookie quarterbacks who have played a lot of college football. Experience matters. And this is why I bang on the table all the time when it comes to rookie quarterbacks and how they are handled. Jayden is an athletic quarterback that people doubted, and he went to a great situation, and he is mature, and they are having an extreme amount of success because of it. They are playing with house money at this point, and it's been great and actually fun to watch. Again, as much as we feast on the carcasses of these dysfunctional teams and their stories, I would rather watch good football. I would rather people run their organization well, make good hires, and watch a good product. I don't have anything for the Jets. That's useless watching time for me. Speaking of a team that's put it all together, the Vikings. Now the Vikings are so scary to me because I don't know what to do with these Vikings. I don't know what to do. They're going to win Coach of the Year, and they currently hold the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now, this also seems like a long time ago, but you remember they had a rookie in J.J. McCarthy. And Sam Darnold looks like he was supposed to look coming out of the draft. They're 4th in passing yards per game, and they have the 2nd best scoring defense in the NFC. 14 is tied for the most, or are the 2nd most wins in franchise history. And everyone is riding high on the Vikings right now. And how can you not? I mean, how can you not? They're going to play for the 1 seed in the NFC next week against the Lions. That's crazy. The Vikings have always been kind of good, right? So it's not like it's that much of a jump, but I saw so much bad Sam Darnold that it was very difficult for me to believe that he was going to come in and do this. It was. And I know a lot of people are like, we always told you Sam Darnold was good, but cool. A lot of those guys who come into the league that everyone thinks is going to be good because they're drafted top 5 and they come from great schools and they struggle because they go to horrible situations, like I just discussed is not happening with the Commanders and with Atlanta. They fall apart. Like they get thrown through the NFL gauntlet and they do not come out the same. And kudos to Sam that he hasn't done that because listen, I am still not a believer. I do not walk by faith. I walk by sight. And as good as this Vikings team has been all season and their defense is remarkable, I have to see it in the playoffs. I do. I am not convinced that this is not a regular season team. And look, Vikings fans can be mad at me. Whatever you want to think, I have to see it. I will be the last person on the bandwagon. I need to see it in the postseason. I'm sorry, because one thing I do know about Sam Darnold is he is not going to change life for you if he does not have the pieces to do it with, right? He's not going to overcome. That we do know about Sam Darnold. So what happens in the postseason is you have those moments, and do players step up in those moments? Now, sometimes average players are unbelievable in the postseason. And I don't know what Sam Darnold is. I don't know if this has always been Sam Darnold and he's just been in shit situations his entire career. I don't know if this is like lightning in a bottle. I don't know. But the point is, I don't know. I do not know what the Vikings are, except for I know that they are a great regular season team and they are really well coached and they have an excellent defense and they have 2 number 1 receivers, and Sam Darnold is playing the best football of his life. They have the 6th best odds to win the Super Bowl. And again, they're going to play the Lions on Sunday night. The winner's going to win the NFC North and the number 1 seed, and the loser will drop to the 5 seed. I got to see it in the postseason. I just have to. And I'm going to maintain this even if they beat the Lions. I have to see what they do in the postseason. I'm just not. If they win one playoff game, I'll be like, all right, cool, it's for real. Pay Sam Darnold and figure out what to do with JJ McCarthy. And the Vikings have arrived, and they've proven everyone wrong, and they deserve it, and they should dance on all of our graves. But I got to see it. I do. I have to see it in the postseason. Speaking of the postseason, the AFC Wild Card race is nuts. So it looked like it was all sewn up, and then everyone just decided we're going to do everyone favors and make this interesting. So it's between the Broncos, Dolphins, and Bengals. The Broncos control their destiny. If they beat the Chiefs have nothing to play for. They've already wrapped up the 1 seed. So you can imagine they're not going to be playing all of their starters, or if they do play their starters, it's not going to be for the whole game. So the Broncos do have an opportunity to ruin everyone's weekend and just beat the Chiefs. However, even though they have nothing to play for, the guys on the field certainly have something to play for, and they'd love to spoil their in-division foes and beat the Broncos. If Denver loses in Week 18 and Miami wins, Miami clinches. If Denver and Miami lose in Week 18 and Cincinnati win, Cincinnati clinches. The fact that Cincinnati is even in this conversation is so laughable. If Miami and Cincinnati both lose in Week 18, Denver clinches regardless of their outcome. So Vegas has the Broncos as the best odds to still get the final wild card, but the Broncos losing just made it a chaos grenade for the final wild card spot in the AFC, which looked like it was sewn up. So I don't know. Speaking frankly, obviously, I would love for the Dolphins to get in. So that is what I'm rooting for. Beyond that, Denver, I think, is a better team than Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati is pulling it all together, as they do every single year, because they start so slow. Joe Burrow is unbelievable. The good thing about what's happened with Cincinnati for me is I don't have to keep arguing on behalf of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is obviously an elite quarterback. We have to stop this nonsense. Like every single year, it's well, he hasn't been back. Like, which of his peers, other than Patrick Mahomes, has been to the Super Bowl? Up until last year, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens hadn't even played in an AFC Championship game. So, what Cincinnati has put together down the stretch has been impressive. It would be cool if they didn't start so slow so they wouldn't have to do this. But obviously, I'm rooting for Miami to get in, and we'll all be having to watch all of these games to scoreboard watch and see what happens. But like I said, I was very concerned that this was going to be a week none of us had to pay attention to other than Sunday night. And it appears we have lots to pay attention to because Denver did everyone the favor of making things interesting by losing. The Giants, however, made everything interesting by winning. I don't know what are we doing here, guys? I know that coaches and players do not tank. I get it. But you went from having a 57% chance with the number 1 overall pick down to 5% in the draft. Now, this draft is really, really interesting because some of the teams that are picking high do not need a quarterback. Namely the Patriots, who right now have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. They're not in the market for a quarterback. So do they stay there? Do they trade back? I am trading back, of course, because they have their quarterback. And I'm going to get a haul for the number 1 overall pick. But here's what's happened. The Patriots have the number 1 pick. The Browns and Titans have 2 and 3. And the Giants are now at 4. So like I said, they had a 57% chance. Now it's dropped to a 5% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. So they went from deciding what quarterback they wanted to now possibly ending up with the 3rd best quarterback, because the Patriots don't need a quarterback, but the Browns very likely will pick a quarterback. Now, being that they are the Browns, it could get interesting because one of those quarterbacks could say, I'm not going to the Browns. Eventually, someone will have to go to the Browns, though. So they'll likely get a quarterback. Then you have the Titans, who will likely pick a quarterback. So you're looking at potentially the 3rd best quarterback in the draft. Now, Shedeur and Cam Ward are in this draft. Jalen Milroe is considered the 3rd best quarterback in the draft, but he is ranked as the 64th best player in the draft. So that's late 2nd, 3rd round talent that you would be picking at the number 4 pick in the draft. Now, you just did this. You just did this with Daniel Jones, Giants. So what do you do here? Now, they're just going to have to hope that they can wiggle their way back up in the draft order. But, the Browns and Titans are not enticing locations for a young quarterback. Again, everyone's not going to say no. There's a lot of things that could happen. If this ends up staying the order, if I was the Giants, I would move up with the Patriots. I would do my best to try and jump the Browns or the Titans, because the Browns and Titans have no incentive to move. So the only thing that you could do really is to try and trade into that number one pick. Just, you got to give up some things. I know the Giants are in a total rebuild, but you can't afford to overdraft a quarterback again. You literally just went through this. It's just crazy how you can be bad all season long, and then when you need to lose the most, you start winning. Teams do this all the time. So it's going to be interesting because it's not a heavy quarterback draft, and there's obviously so many teams that need quarterbacks. I think Kirk Cousins will end up somewhere. I think if, depending on how things play out with the Vikings and Sam Darnold, like I said, JJ McCarthy might be available, or Sam Darnold might be available. Justin Fields is going to be on the market, because they're going to have to make a decision between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, because Justin Fields is clearly starting level talent in this league, and he's not going to stay there as a backup. So there is going to be some movement at the quarterback position once the season is over and we see where everything falls in the draft. But man, Giants, what are you doing? What are you doing? I know. I say it all the time. Coaches and players do not tank, but now you've won your way out of the top pick in the draft. Anyways, thanks so much for hanging with me today, guys. Hope you have a wonderful New Year, as I will not talk to you before then. So enjoy your New Year's Eve and your New Year's Day. Wishing you a fabulous 2025. Wishing all of us, hopefully, a fabulous 2025. And make sure you leave your comments and like and share and subscribe. We will get to some of your comments on Thursday. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great week.